Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Syntell, and I am here to talk about some maybe possible spoilers for the next episode of Loki coming up. I'm like super excited, and it's going to debut in like a little over like 12 hours for me. But some questions have been kind of going back and forth between me and some other friends regarding like who the big bad is, like who is the man behind the mask. Who's the man behind the curtain, right? And there's a lot of theories. There's theories that it's like King Loki. There's theories that it's going to be Kang. There's theories that it could be, somebody from the TVA. Maybe Mobius. There's all kinds of like these different angles going around. I found a really good video from the new Rockstars. I did a really good job of breaking some stuff down. So I watched like the first 5 minutes of it, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute. This looks like it could be something good to react to. So that's what I'm going to do for this particular video. I'm going to react to the new Rockstars, giving us their suspects of who they think could be the final boss, the final villain. Hopefully everybody will get a chance to check this out before the premiere, not the premiere, but the finale of Loki this evening, and it'll give you something to think about and see what your expectations are. So let's check it out.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and as we look ahead to the Loki finale, who the hell is in that castle at the end of time? Who created the TVA and its timekeeper robots? And are we guaranteed to be Ralph Bonered yet again?
Ralph Bonered.
Well,
yeah, that was like a bit of a disappointment, right?
For and against all top 8 suspects.
All right, so we got 8.
Hopefully we can all go into this finale
that's a lot, actually. I don't know if I was expecting
rather
8.
Than clinging
maybe
to
like
one
5.
expectation that some might base their enjoyment of this whole show on the validity of. Look, folks, Kang and Mephisto might heat up a party, but you don't need them for an enjoyable night of tabletop gaming. I think I know what that means. Let's start with suspect number 1, Kang the Conqueror, aka Immortus, aka
That's who
Nathaniel
I'm betting
Richards,
on.
aka the
Kang.
Pharaoh Rama Tut. How many of these are there? Aka Mr. Gryphon, head of King Enterprises, the company that overtakes Stark Tower in the comics, and the latest Loki Easter egg.
Oh wow, I didn't
in the
even
direction
realize
of Kang.
that.
Now, many skeptical viewers are comparing Kang to Mephisto in WandaVision, just another goofy big bad from the comics that nerds are making mountains out of Easter egg molehills to justify.
I mean, but can you blame us, though?
But the truth is, there are far more clues pointing to Kang's arrival than we ever had for Mephisto. With Mephisto, our evidence was cryptic mentions of devils and demon spawns, satanic imagery, and parallels to a comic storyline in which Mephisto was the villain.
Are his
behind
hands
it all.
made
But
out
by
of
episode
babies?
7 of the show, the series revealed it was Agatha all along. But with
Which
Loki,
ended up being like
very
one of the
different
hottest
situation.
beats too.
Headed into
Agatha
the finale,
all along.
we do not have an Agatha all along yet. There's still some man behind the curtain. And unlike Mephisto, Kang the Conqueror has been confirmed and cast in the MCU.
Jonathan Majors is dope.
Spoiler warning for Black Widow. Seriously, if you haven't seen it, skip the next 10 seconds or so. Marvel Studios just proved it's not afraid to introduce big names first on Disney Plus
Yo, that's
shows,
the Dreyfus
with
lady,
Mystery
right?
Woman Val appearing on the
Yeah.
Falcon the Winter Soldier before her cameo now in Black Widow. Also, of all the TVA judges in the comics they could have chosen, the writers picked Ravonna Renslayer, arguably best known as Kang's romantic interest. Similarly, Alioth. The writers could have made up a smoke monster or picked any number of
the
lesser
smoke
beasts
monster.
from Marvel
Excellent
lore, and they
visual
chose
effects.
the one best known for threatening Kang's temporal empire. The Void's possession of the pyramids and the Sphinx mirrors the historical trophies Kang keeps in his Chronopolis kingdom.
It's
the
looking like it's
central
gonna be Kang.
timekeeper that the cinematography keeps focusing on looks like an android Kang could have made in his own image. Kang Prime in the comics does reside at the end of time where this citadel is located, and Loki is a time travel series. Kang is Marvel's ultimate time travel villain. It just lines up. Now, if the Void is made up of things that the TVA pruned, and if Kang were running the TVA, why would they prune things from a Kang-dominated timeline? Well, if the TVA is
That's a
all
good question.
Kang's machinery, the Void's true purpose could be to collect things that Kang actually wants, and Alioth could be the snake in his garden that Kang needed Sylvie to slay. Or
All right, let me pause that for a second. That does make a little bit more sense because I had like a review reaction trailer with Jabby Koey regarding Loki and who we think could be the big bads and stuff. And then we were kind of like talked briefly about like the stuff that's in the end of time. And we noticed that there weren't like any humans, right? It's just pretty much like just Lokis for anything. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So that kind of might justify a little bit of that. It's not necessarily things that need to be disappeared, but more so things that could be collected. I don't know. Just one of my theories.
Kang could be a TVA prisoner kept in solitary confinement, and Alioth was keeping him there. Look, it might not be Kang, but anyone who says that it's definitely not Kang is either dismissing a very likely possibility for just being too obvious to them, kind of like what Mobius said.
It's always the game within the game with you guys, which I respect.
Or people are just afraid of looking wrong after Mephisto.
That's
to which
what it's
I
more
say,
like.
if you like this stuff this much,
People
being
just don't wanna
right
be
isn't
wrong.
gonna make you cool, so just be the greater fool and own it. And that brings us to Suspect 2, King Loki. Trailer footage, shot still yet to be shown on the series,
sitting on his
show
throne.
a smug Loki on the throne of Asgard.
Right.
And another shot shows Loki back in Stark Tower, redoing the events of the Battle of New York.
Glorious.
We know the TVA targets Lokis in particular, and since this show is about Loki variants, it would make sense
look
for
at
the
Hulk
man behind
Loki.
the curtain to be some alpha Loki who created the TVA in order to erase all other variant competitors to his rule, and one who would represent the darkest parts of Loki's soul that our protagonist has been battling internally. Now, you could also say this might contradict the trajectory the series has been following, right? Like each
Okay.
episode introduces us to increasingly diverse Loki variants, each with a different face, from a female to an old man to a kid to a reptile. So
Oh,
to
and a
pull
black
back
Loki.
the final
There's a black
curtain
Loki.
just to reveal the face of Tom Hiddleston again? I mean, I don't know. Loki just did that in episode 5.
It would
opening the
seem a
hatch
little
to
redundant,
President
though,
Loki,
right?
and then shortly after, the show turned him into a kind of a joke. So it might seem like a step backward to reveal yet another Tom Hiddleston Loki, but evil this time, even though we spent 2.5 movies with that version of the character already. Folks, these trailer shots could just be visions of a hypothetical timeline in which Loki rules as king, illusions conjured by whoever is behind the curtain to try to tempt Loki. Now, just to cover our bases, we could look at suspect number 3, Mobius, with his
Hold on, before we get to
perceived
suspect number 3.
inconsistencies
Okay, so he thinks it might be a little redundant. I think it might be a little bit redundant for Loki to be the big bad, right? But, you know, that's what this whole series is about. It's like, it's all about the different variations and variants of Loki. So if the very end goal is that, you know, we get to see the ultimate variation of what Loki could be, like his best and ultimate form, would that be disappointing to you all if that was how it turned out? Or was it kind of just redundant like we're kind of talking about already?
of not remembering leaving ring stains, not remembering an alligator
Morbius.
Loki, as a sign that there could be some other Mobius variant, or Mobius could be a Loki variant. But it does seem like Owen Wilson was cast on this show to be a foil to Loki, not to be some maniacal, crazy big bad. He seems like he's there to represent the aw shucks innocence of the TVA workforce, and of course to ride a jet ski. Really, for
We
it
all
to
want to see him
matter
ride a
that
jet
some
ski, right? It's not
characters
just
are
me.
Loki variants, a lot of the other characters must not be Loki variants. There's only so many times you can play that card. Similarly,
We just
suspect
said that.
number 4, Renslayer, already has a role to play in uncovering this mystery. So to reveal a Renslayer variant behind the curtain might muddy the current Renslayer arc and set up a weird Renslayer versus Renslayer conflict.
I don't want
Is that how we
Renslayer
want
to
the show
be-
to end? There is suspect number 5, Casey, not seen since episode 2, and some are saying the name Casey is a clue. K-C. Kang the Conqueror. I'm sorry. But suspect number 6,
that's cool,
Miss
but I don't want
Minutes,
Casey
is
to be it.
worth considering
Miss
because we
Minutes,
still
though.
don't know what she is. Like, she can transcend both digital screens and real space, and she is close enough to the heart of the TVA to access confidential records and lie on behalf of it. And
Wow.
Tara Strong teased that there's so much more to be revealed, and that you don't really know who she is, where she's from, what her origin story is, how sentient she is. Miss Minutes could be the public face of whoever is controlling the TVA, and Sylvie's vision glided up to that lit tower and stopped at its golden glow, maybe connected to the color of Miss Minutes. And in this case, the one controlling
That
the
seems
TVA
a
might
bit
be
like a reach,
no
but
one. And it's all
could be
part of some
interesting.
self-perpetuating clockwork with mechanized puppet authorities. But what threw me was the way these android timekeepers laughed when Sylvie decapitated one of them. Pretty weird response. I read that as some maniacal puppet master who might have even wanted Loki and Sylvie to make this discovery. And that brings us to suspect number 7, Dr. Doom.
Dr.
whom some are
Doom is a
connecting to the
suspect?
European-looking castle,
Really?
the androids they say being similar to Doombots,
No.
and the possibility that sorcery could have been used
It's
to
not gonna
enchant
be
the
Dr.
TVA to block out the other forms of magic. But unlike Kang, Doom has not yet been cast or
That's
even
right.
confirmed for the MCU. He's coming someday, but probably not in the next few years. I think the people who are pushing for Dr. Doom are just comic readers who find Kang too confusing. But in my breakdown, I brought up suspect number 8, Classic Loki, suggesting that he might have faked his death with Alioth, similar to the way he confessed to faking his death with Thanos. I like this better than King Loki because it still checks those boxes of Loki facing an alpha variant of himself while letting Richard E. Grant continue to shine. Think about it, classic Loki is
why can't they be both?
powerful.
Why can't
He
King
casts
Loki
complex
be this
duplicates,
version?
creating teleportation portals, conjuring a full Asgard Emerald City illusion, and in his final seconds, as he was wiped away by Alioth, he let his green magic fade from his hands, and he was laughing in glee, and notice how his cape seemed to dematerialize before Alioth got to him. I'm definitely getting some vibes of Obi-Wan surrendering to Vader to become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And classic Loki had that interesting response to Mobius earlier.
So just like that, you're turning on the very thing you devoted your life to.
It's never too late to change.
It's just hard to tell with him because Grant is so good an actor. He released that single tear as light and wind pounded his face.
Oh, I didn't even
which
peep
could
the
have
single
been him
tear.
accepting
It's
his
like a
fate
Denzel
or feeling a
moment.
kind of excitement for a different long-awaited release. Now you may be asking, why would classic Loki slum it in the void if he was really running the TVA from that castle beyond? Well, if we're really going by the man behind the curtain logic, classic Loki's theatrical costume could be a duplicate illusion that the real old man was conjuring from that castle beyond. Maybe the only thing that can subdue Alioth is enchantment, the one form of sorcery that he does not appear to have, because unlike Loki L1130 and Sylvie, he never had a connection with another. He lived his whole life alone on a remote planet. That could be why he wanted Sylvie and Loki to come here, why the Timekeepers laughed, why Lokis have been targeted. I think whoever is the man behind the curtain, one safe bet is that they will refer to themselves as He Who Remains. That's the title of the elderly TVA agent at the end of time who engineers the Timekeepers. And I say that because really any of these suspects could be He Who Remains, or He Who Remains might just be a completely new face, or even just a note left by a guy named He Who Remains on a Miss Minutes wall clock connected to a bunch of cogs and levers, reading, "Out to lunch, see you in a minute." And based on all of the evidence, folks, it's just hard not to imagine that whoever it is, if it's not Kang, it must have been someone who created the TVA at the behest of or in response to Kang. Like, even if Kang is reduced to a post-credit cameo or no sighting at all, his fingerprints are all over the series, and we're not talking devils in the details. These are intentional clues.
Right.
So if you are still in the Kang gang after all
Kang
this,
gang, baby.
I will be there with you because Mephisto's getting lonely in my daily mentions. So where am I at? I guess I'll say classic Loki, He Who Remains, and a rivalry against Kang with Miss Minutes as his automated assistant.
Big shout out to the new rock stars. Check them out. Follow them if you can for supplying us with this great material. That's a lot of stuff to kind of like digest, right? I'd never considered Miss Minutes. Yeah, it's interesting because she kind of can like transcend realities, be it on the television screen or right in front of you. She, does have records to all. She does have access to all of the records from the beginning of time and till the end of time. So she's definitely powerful, right? There's no doubt about that. Now, I'm trying to figure out like the difference between King Loki and the older Loki. Why can't they be one and the same? That could work, especially if you're trying to be the best version of yourself and you want to eliminate all competition. Why wouldn't you have a space where in a company that goes out and just grabs all of these variant Lokis, puts them in one pile, and then you can like hand pick whichever one of those Lokis best suits your needs, or eliminate all of them so that there can never be somebody to achieve, your already Loki-ish status. So that kind of does make sense. My bet is still on Kang the Conqueror. I didn't even realize that the Stark Tower had Kang written on it. You're dealing with time travel and all of that. I mean, he's one of the best kind of time travel villains that you can get. And then there's also the possibility of why can't it be both? It could. Maybe King Loki / old Loki needs the best of all of his Lokis in order to defeat King the Conqueror. And maybe that's why he's locked up at the end of time. You never know. That could be it. The Miss Minutes thing is kind of interesting. What I thought was a little silly was the Doctor Doom reference. How in the world did you squeeze Doctor Doom into all of that? That's just, okay, sure. I've heard some people talk about Mobius. Now, there are some unresolved issues regarding Mobius and his interaction with Renslayer, and how there's things that's going on in her office that he's forgotten, where it's like where to put his glass, there's other like trophies that's being around, and that has to be resolved. I think that's really important, and what it means for him to have like this memory with the jet ski. So we all want to see Owen Wilson on the jet ski at the end of all of this. I know it's not just me. So that may play into the overall big bad theory, but I don't think it's Mobius. I still think it's going to be Kang, simply also because why in the world would you already have the casting, right? They've already got the guy casted. Everything kind of points to that. I hope it's not some small little, like, you know, he peeks his head from around the corner and kind of like, haha, it was me all along, and dips, kind of like how they did the Agatha all along thing. But at least Agatha had like a full-blown like fight scene at the end. It would be dope to see King the Conqueror get into a fight scene. With that being said, he would probably win because I doubt it would just one-off him, that type of character, like real quick, have him only in there for like, 5 minutes of fighting and then defeat him. That would be kind of like a waste. So I don't want that to happen either. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And I guess we'll come back tomorrow, too, after we get done checking out the season finale of Loki and figure out which one of these theories held the most water. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you for checking out my channel. I am Syntell. It's your boy Syntell. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also hit the bell if you want to get all of this amazing and dope information right at your fingertips as soon as it gets released. Other than that, I will talk to you later and take care. Peace out.